Hi everybody, this is Meg at Chasing Retro, and I'm coming to you twice in one day, which is not super usual, but I wanted to go ahead and share with you a fun little project that I had sort of on the side this weekend in between our celebrating our daughter's birthday. So as you can tell by the first part of the video, I got to play with Shrinky Dinks, and I have not played with Shrinky Dinks since I think I may have bought my daughter a Shrinky Dink kit when she was little, and we did that once, but it was the kind that had the color pencils that came with the kit, which usually aren't that great, and then the pre-drawn images. Well, this time I knew I wanted to make some Shrinky Dinks for the 80s journals, so I went on to Amazon, and lo and behold, they had this kit or set. It's called the Ultimate Crafting Kit. I'm going to link this in my Amazon affiliates list below if you would like to check it out. But full disclosure, I do get a tiny little portion of things bought through that list. It doesn't cost you anymore, but it just puts a little bit of money in my Amazon account for future craft buys. But this was 110 pieces, which is a little misleading because some of the pieces are key rings, but it includes 5 colored sheets, which I didn't even know they made, 15 crystal clear sheets, which are my new favorite, 10 rough and ready sheets, which I think is the kind that we all used growing up, and then 10 frosted sheets. And then it also comes with carabiner, beaded chains, keychains, earring bases, and jump rings. Let me show you a few of the things in here. The colored was very interesting. At first I was like, oh, that's gonna limit me, but it ended up working out in my favor for what I wanted to use these for. This is the crystal clear, and honestly the sheet on the top was scratched or just kind of marred, I guess from the packaging and rubbing against stuff, but that's okay. It did not seem to affect anything once I put it in the oven and made it into a Shrinky Dink. This is one of the white ones, and this is glossy on both sides. This is, I wouldn't say matte, but it's definitely a rougher surface than glossy on both sides, and it is not see-through, as you can tell. This one is semi-transparent, and the colors were glossy on one side and matte on the other. So a lot of this was kind of like, okay, what tools do I use to draw and color on these things? And thankfully my daughter has done this before. She's made earrings with Shrinky Dinks before. I have not. So she was able to tell me what tools and pens and things I could use. This is the rough and ready, which is what we grew up using. It's shiny on one side and scratched up on the other. So when we were little, I remember my friends and I had our color pencils that we got every year for taking to school with us, and we would get that little pack of pencils out and we would draw our own things, or sometimes these would come pre-printed with Miss Piggy or whatever. And then the frosted sheets, I don't think I used but one of those. They're here. Nope, that's rough and ready. Hold on, let me find the frosted. Rough and ready, white. Maybe I used more of the frosted than I thought I did, because I don't see them. No, there's only one left. Nope, that's white. Hold on, guys. I feel like this is the clear, and I think it had mostly that. Rough and ready. Maybe I might have left the frosted on the counter because I was working over there. Well, regardless, there are 10 frosted sheets and 10 rough and ready. And honestly, I may just be thinking some of these are rough and ready, but they may be frosted. But they're not going to be completely clear when you bake them. The pro to that is you can write on the frosted and the rough and ready with pretty much any color pencil you have. You don't have to have anything fancy in your tool arsenal. If you have color pencils or regular pencils, you can use that. If you have a Sharpie, you can outline your design with black Sharpie. Now with these, the colored and the crystal clear, you really do need to have some sort of paint pen. Now, my daughter and I use two kinds. She has Posca pens. One of her friends gave her a set of Posca pens for her birthday last year, so she let me use those. We also got some from Gravy, and I unboxed those and didn't really know what I was going to use those for earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year. Turns out they were perfect for this. You don't have to get the Posca brand. If you just go find some acrylic paint markers in a variety of shades, you will have everything you need to color on these. And I tell you, the results are outstanding. There are a few tips and tricks that you'll need to know just to make sure that the color stays fast, and to make sure that it seals well at the end. And I'll tell you one caveat too with using the Gravy markers. I had a little bit of an issue with one of the colors. It was sort of a hot pink. I'm just going to put this in later. I had a hot pink that when I wrote on the white, it sort of bled and faded into the white once I had them in the oven. And I will show you that here in a second when I show you a few of the ones that I made. Other than that though, all of the other colors stayed strong, and by far I will say that the Poscas performed the best in this little litmus test of what can we use on these Shrinky Dink films. So here's an example of one of them that I used the solid white with. This is solid white with a acrylic black paint pen, and I think this is one of the, this is the hot pink that sort of ran into the white. Can you see how it's kind of sort of has a halo around it? That is the only color that did this, and that's unfortunate because it's the color that I needed for my Barbie logo and Poochie's hair and things like that. But overall, the Gravy pens performed okay. The blue looks great. So if you're wondering how I found these images, I just looked for free coloring pages or free black and white clip art of certain characters or items that I felt like reflected the 1980s. And I printed them out after dragging them into an image editing program. There is a calculator that you can use to figure out how big your Shrinky Dinks need to be drawn or printed in relation to how small you want them to become. So in general, I think this is the calculation I used. You take whatever size you want them to be at the end, and I wanted mine to be about 2 inches. As you can see, this is right at 2. And you multiply that by 2.57. And that is how much you need to, that's how big you need to scale the images before you color them, cut them out, and put them in the oven. So I did 2.57 times this, and it ended up being around 5. So I tried to scale everything that I printed and traced to be 5 inches tall by 5 inches wide, give or take. Some were more narrow, but I never went over 5 inches on the longest side. And that will give you a piece or a charm once you add the jump ring. That will give you a Shrinky Dink this size. Now, believe it or not, you do not need to use a tiny hole punch for these. Do you see how small this hole is? This hole was made with a standard hole punch. If you were to use a crocodile 1/8 inch hole punch, which is right here, when you put it in the oven, that hole will close up. So I made that mistake early on. Don't do that. Also, if you have forgotten to punch your hole before baking and you think you can do it after, not even this will prevent the plastic from cracking. So I learned that also the hard way. Don't think that, oh, I can just punch this with my crocodile. For some reason, this type of plastic just does not react well to being punched after. It sort of creates a longitudinal fracture through the whole piece. Okay, so another thing that I learned the hard way, as you can tell, this VHS tape is not rectangle. It was when I put it in the oven. And the only thing I can figure, because this happened a few times to a few of the ones that I drew that were very rectangular in shape, to try to fit more on each page, I turned my images that I was tracing sort of catty-cornered. And there was nothing written about this in the literature that came with the Shrinky Dinks, but I think that the plastic for Shrinky Dinks is made, and I don't know how to describe this because I don't know the exact word. The plastic is oriented a certain way, you know, mainly exactly vertical, exactly horizontal. And so when it gets put into the oven, it tends to shrink this way and this way. So obviously if I were to draw something this way, it's going to shrink like this. And so it created more of a parallelogram or rhombus effect to my more square objects that I did turn perpendicular like this to trace. That is just a little tip for you if you decide to do this. Now you may put it straight up and down and it still turns out like this. Let me know if it does, because that's my theory anyway. I'm not going to fuss over it. I'm not going to start over. I'm not going to make more of these. I like the way these turned out. That's the beauty of junk journaling to me, is it's handmade. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little messy. So this is after they came out of the oven. I don't have it next to me, but I used Liquitex Clear Glossy Sealer, and you can buy that at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. It is just, you can use any sealer. You can use the one that Martha Stewart puts out. I think I have a bottle of that in my craft cabinet as well. Just a clear, you can even use a spray Mod Podge sealer or any kind of clear acrylic sealer. That keeps your colors from running. It also keeps on some of the more matte Shrinky Dinks, after they baked, I found that the black was trying to sort of flake off, and that will prevent that from happening. It won't create the really cool bubbly effect that you would see on a charm that you buy in a store. However, you can do a few things to combat that. You can try something like this, which I have not tried yet, but I saw other YouTubers use. Glossy accents, things like that. It will take a lot of this to cover over this, especially if you made as many as I did. So, you know, do that at your own discretion according to your budget. But another thing you can do, you can buy UV acrylic in this same size bottle, and you can completely fill the image with the UV cured acrylic. If you have a UV light, you can cure it there. I know some people use those for nails as well. You can use it for this project as well. Or you can put it in the sunshine and leave it there for a half a day, and it will take longer, but it will still cure. So that's an option if you want yours to be more, I guess, three-dimensional. Here's another one. This one turned out great because I don't think I turned it weird. And I put a punch right here before baking. Always punch before baking. I also varied on what I put down on my toaster oven. I tried foil at first, but it created sort of an ugly, that's not one that's, let me find one that has the background. I don't see, I had one that had sort of a bumpy background, but I don't see it. But if you use foil, if it's not completely smooth, when you lay the shiny side down, because you always put the colored side up in the oven, it will create sort of a bumpy texture on the back. I switched to parchment halfway through this project because my husband went and bought some. He needed some anyway. He makes sourdough bread. We were out, so I used foil. I switched to parchment, and I'm telling you guys, game changer. The backs of them are completely smooth and shiny now, so I suggest using parchment. I used my toaster oven. I set it to stay on bake at 325, and I just, after I had these all colored and cut out, I just sort of had I did one at a time so I could watch it carefully, and I just did sort of a process where I just went one after the other. Occasionally, the two of the opposite corners will stick to each other, and you have to use a spatula really quickly to go in there and sort of pull them apart. And after you do that, they immediately do what they're supposed to do and lay down. So If you're familiar with Shrinky Dinks, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, it can be sort of a stressful thing to see the thing that you just spent 30 minutes coloring curl up and stick to itself. So don't give up yet. It's not over till it's over. And even the more twisted ones can be cooled, reheated, and reshaped later on. And the directions in the box tell how to do that. So all of these things, here's one of the examples of the pink that ran. All of these things I will be adding jump rings to and intermingling with the other objects that I'm going to be making into charmed angles for these 80s journals. And this is an example of one on the Rough and Ready with colored pencils. I think it turned out great. It's not as smooth, obviously, as the paint pens, but you know what? It's more reflective of what Shrinky Dinks looked like in the 80s when we played with them as kids. So I like both. I like the way this looks. I like the way this looks. This is very nostalgic for me. They both feel the same in the hand, and they're both just fun. Here's another one. This is one of the ones that we use the colored sheets with. And my husband didn't have to do this, but he ended up going back, and I did not seal the back, but he went back and drew on the back with black and white, because if you, like this, if I had turned it over and he hadn't have done that, you would just see blue. You don't have to do that. And I probably should seal this so this won't scrape off, but I think he's fine as he is. I just love him. The little Pac-Man ghost. This was a little fun one that I used with the yellow. Did a little skateboard, and I did not do the back. So yeah, I like the way these sound when they hit each other. It's kind of like wind chime-esque. These journals are going to be very tactile and very interactive. I really, really hope that the tassels turn out like I have envisioned them to turn out. We'll see. I'm not going to show you all of the Shrinky Dinks. I probably have 22 to 25 that I did, and it literally took me off and on 3 days. But you will see them when I do the flip through, so stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to get on and show you guys that kit was available. You don't have to be an artist to use it. You can print free coloring pages, trace. You can even, in your editing program, you can flip the image and make it look the other way. You can do all kinds of stuff with editing software. And then you can create your own Shrinky Dinks of whatever characters or shapes you want to use. And like I said, the little magic formula is multiply the size that you want your image to be by 2.57, and that will give you the amount of inches you need to make your items before baking. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you guys are doing well, and stay tuned for more processes as we go along creating these 80s journals. Bye, y'all.